It can be argued that no group has been more pivotal in English history than the Anglo-Saxons. This loose confederation of Germanic tribes not only gave Britain its language, but also fostered a culture of dispersed power and widespread liberty, influences that remain evident throughout the Anglophone world. Despite their remarkable legacy, many aspects of Anglo-Saxon history are often overlooked today. So let's explore the little-known facts about the Anglo-Saxons. Before we start, please support my channel by clicking like and subscribe buttons. Paganism. Thanks to the roaming monks from Rome and the dynamic monks of Ireland, Anglo-Saxon Britain swiftly adopted Christianity following the establishment of the Kingdom of Kent in the 5th century. Christian Anglo-Saxons spread monastic foundations across England, crafting exquisite poetry venerating both God and the heroes of their pagan heritage, and erecting grand stone churches, many of which endure today. While their counterparts across the Channel remained entrenched in paganism, Anglo-Saxon Britain flourished in its Christian embrace. However, on the continent, Saxon paganism persisted, posing a persistent challenge to the Roman-affiliated Germanic kings. Foremost among these rulers stood Charlemagne, the Frankish sovereign. Commencing in 772, Charlemagne and his missionaries embarked on a hostile campaign aimed at eradicating Saxon paganism. Despite the fierce resistance, Charlemagne's efforts proved victorious. Perhaps no event captures the brutality of this triumph more starkly than the mass execution of around 4,500 pagan Saxons in October 782. Trained in Roman army. The Anglo-Saxon invasions of Britain are often portrayed as the triumph of barbarians over a more civilized society. Indeed, the Romano-British elite were more educated and cultured, by Roman standards, than their Anglo-Saxon counterparts. While the Romano-British enjoyed bathhouses, books, and urban living, the Anglo-Saxons dwelled in rural villages, were mostly illiterate, and lived primarily as farmers or pirates. However, the Saxons were well acquainted with one key Roman institution, the Roman army. Known for their fierce warrior skills, the Saxons from northern Germany and southern Denmark were frequently recruited by the Roman army. Following the fall of the Western Roman Empire, Roman Britain was left vulnerable. The only defenders against the invading Picts and Gaels were Roman-trained Britons. It's plausible that the Romano-British invited the Saxons to help, as they too had served in the Roman army. Often overlooked in historical accounts is the fact that many of the invading Angles and Saxons were already residing in Britain, having been stationed there as members of the late Roman army. Blood Month. Animal sacrifice was a prevalent practice among Anglo-Saxon pagans. According to Bede, an Anglo-Saxon scholar and Christian monk, they dedicated an entire month, November, to this ritual. In his Latin work, The Reckoning of Time, Bede refers to Blood Month, or Blood Month, as a time for immolations, during which cattle and other animals were slaughtered to appease the Germanic gods. It is commonly believed that this ritual targeted older or sickly animals, providing food and clothing for the winter. Interestingly, the Anglo-Saxons, like the Celts of Britain, marked the start of their new year in November, often holding feasts and ceremonies on the last day of October. This coincided with the Celtic festival of Samhain, the precursor to Halloween, which was still celebrated alongside Blood Month. There is ongoing debate about whether human sacrifices were also part of Blood Month. Where did the Anglo-Saxons originate from? These people hailed from northern Germany and southern Scandinavia, serving as immigrants to the British Isles. The collapse of the Roman Empire marked a monumental historical catastrophe. While the Romans never fully subdued Britain, particularly facing resistance from tribes like the Picts in what is now modern Scotland, they erected Hadrian's Wall as a formidable barrier to protect the prosperous south from northern incursions. With the decline of Roman influence, these defences weakened and the Picts breached them. According to Gildas, a British historian, Saxon mercenaries were enlisted to defend Britain once the Roman legions departed. Hence, the Anglo-Saxons were invited immigrants, akin to migrants from former British colonial territories in the post-1945 era, according to this perspective. Anglo-Saxon culture was nearly eradicated. Starting in the 9th century, Danish Vikings shifted from raiding to settling in Britain, establishing small but formidable communities. In 851, a Danish army wintered in Thanet, and later, a force of around 350 ships attacked Canterbury and London, only to be repelled by a West Saxon army. Despite this early setback, the Danes continued to flood into Britain, becoming both farmers and formidable warriors, which earned them significant political influence. By the late 9th century, Danish law prevailed in 14 shires, primarily in the north and east, creating a powerful Anglo-Norse culture that nearly wiped out Anglo-Saxon traditions. The Anglo-Saxons, by then devoutly Christian, perceived the predominantly pagan Danes as a demonic race under Satan's control. Despite their cultural and genetic similarities, this stark religious difference fueled a cycle of violence that persisted well into the 11th century. The rise of Danelaw, where Danish customs and governance dominated, pushed Anglo-Saxon culture to the brink of extinction, highlighting the intense conflict between these two Viking-influenced groups. The Britons rallied under a mysterious leader. In the mid-5th century, the Angles, Saxons, Jutes, and other newcomers erupted from their enclave in the southeast, igniting all of southern Britain. According to Gildas, our closest contemporary source, a new British leader named Ambrosius Aurelianus emerged during this crisis in the late 440s and early 450s. A significant battle occurred around year 500 at a location called Mount Bedon, likely in the southwest of modern England. The Britons achieved a decisive victory over the Saxons, but details remained scarce. A later Welsh source attributes the victory to Arthur, though this account, written centuries later, may have been influenced by subsequent myths. Nonetheless, the Anglo-Saxon advance was temporarily halted by someone, possibly Arthur. Alfred the Great had a crippling disability. When we look up at the statue of King Alfred of Wessex in Winchester, we see an image of our national superhero, the valiant defender of a Christian realm against heathen Viking marauders. Alfred fully deserves this accolade as England's darling. But there is another, lesser-known side to him. Alfred never expected to be king. He had 3 older brothers, but at the age of 4, during a visit to Rome, the Pope seemed to grant him special favour when his father presented him to the pontiff. As Alfred grew up, he was plagued by illness, including painful piles, a significant problem for a prince who was constantly in the saddle. Asser, his biographer, mentions that Alfred suffered from another unspecified painful and draining malady. Some speculate it was Crohn's disease, others suggest it might have been a sexually transmitted disease or severe depression. The exact nature of Alfred's ailment remains unknown. Nonetheless, it is remarkable that Alfred's extraordinary achievements were accomplished despite his daily struggle with chronic illness. That's it for today. Thanks for watching. Please do not forget to support my channel by clicking like and subscribe buttons.